afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on fighting pension fraud. Today, we're bringing you the latest updates from the Pension Scams Action Group, also known as PSAG. I'm Cathy Mustoe from the Pensions Regulator's Intelligence team, and I'll be your host for this session. We have a busy agenda and a great lineup of speakers for you today. First, we'll be hearing from Lord Hanson, the Fraud Minister, who has recorded a short video for us outlining the government's latest fraud strategy. After that, Mike Broomfield, TPR's Head of Intelligence and Chair of PSAG, will be providing an update on what we and our PSAG partners have been doing recently to address pension scams. I'm delighted that we'll then be joined by Donna Walsh, Head of Master Trust at Standard Life, who'll be bringing a pension schemes perspective. And finally, it's a pleasure to welcome Chris Bell, Service Delivery Director from City of London Police, to give us an update on Report Fraud, the new service that has now replaced Action Fraud. Please send in your comments and questions using the box to the right of the video. Before we begin, we'd like to ask you two quick polling questions. You can take part by clicking the polling tab to the right of the video player or by scanning the QR code on screen and using your phone. I'll give you a moment to get connected. The two questions will appear on your screen, one after the other. And we'll be sharing the results later in the session, so please do submit your responses. We'd also appreciate it if you could complete the short feedback survey in the menu to the left, even if you need to leave early. According to the National Crime Agency, fraud now makes up over 40% of all reported crime in England and Wales, with pension fraud alone totalling more than £17.5 million in 2024. That equates to £48,000 per day lost to pension scams. It's a life-changing harm that has a devastating effect on its victims. PSAG is a multi-agency task force dedicated to tackling pension fraud through prevention, protection and disruption. Our partners, including the Pension Scams Industry Group, bring together specialist skills, knowledge and data. And this helps us to understand the risk, develop preventative policies and approaches, disrupt the fraudsters through techniques such as taking down scam websites, and in some cases, putting the offenders behind bars. But pension fraud is an ever-evolving problem, and there is always more we can do. That's why your involvement and today's discussion is so important. So to begin, let's hear from Fraud Minister Lord Hanson speaking about the government's fraud strategy.
Hello all, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you about the new fraud strategy and our national behaviour change campaign, Stop, Think, Fraud. Speaking to industry members across the pension landscape, you'll be familiar with the figures. However, they remain shocking. According to Report Fraud, nearly £18 million was lost to pension fraud in 2024. That's an average of £34,000 per victim. And as you know, the personal impact can be devastating. Our mission is clear. We must make the UK harder for fraudsters to operate in and a safer place for people to live, work and do business. The government's fraud strategy is built around three pillars: disrupt, safeguard and respond. Together they set out a comprehensive and ambitious plan to stop fraud at its source, protect the public and deliver justice for victims. Disrupt focuses on breaking the fraud business model by cutting criminals off from the tools, technologies and networks they depend on. This means going upstream and dismantling the infrastructure that enables fraud at scale and to stop criminals long before they reach their targets. To do this, we're establishing an online crime centre, bringing together law enforcement, intelligence and industry expertise to target the enablers of fraud. We will strengthen partnerships across financial services, telecoms and tech, ensuring platforms are harder for criminals to abuse and working with the regulators to ensure best practice. And we'll deepen cooperation with high priority countries, share intelligence and coordinate enforcement to ensure fraudsters cannot hide behind international boundaries. Safeguarding is about reducing vulnerability and building resilience amongst the public and businesses. We're going to expand proactive policing initiatives, use data to identify vulnerabilities and hotspots, and intervene earlier, especially to shield the most vulnerable communities. We're strengthening public education and access to guidance. Stop Think Fraud will be expanded to cover more fraud types, and our work with industry to increase the uptake of Protect behaviours is going to continue. And finally, when fraud does occur, as it will, victims deserve justice and support, and perpetrators must face real consequences. Therefore, we must respond. We're introducing a Fraud Victims Charter to guarantee consistent standards of care. The new Report Fraud Service is being operated, replacing Action Fraud, with a modern, user-friendly system that simplifies reporting, provides timely updates, and removes the uncertainty victims have faced for far too long. We're going to explore civil powers to freeze and recover assets faster, delivering justice more swiftly and preventing criminals from moving or hiding stolen money. And through Disrupt, we're going to safeguard and respond strategy. We're going to look at directing our fight against fraud. We will stop fraud at its source, protect the public through stronger awareness and resilience, and deliver justice and support for victims. Now, while we will continue to target criminals behind fraud, we must also help the public protect themselves. Stop Think Fraud is the government's national behaviour change campaign that helps individuals and small businesses both identify fraud and take action to protect themselves. Now, you know the warning signs: unexpected offers, promises of early access to pensions or high guaranteed returns. However, your members may not recognise these signs as quickly as you do. Every touch point you have with pension holders is an opportunity to reinforce our message, whether it's in correspondence, in websites, in customer service teams. You can help people understand the importance of stopping and thinking before sharing personal information on their life savings. Fraudsters are adapting rapidly, but so are we. With government, law enforcement, industry and civil society working together, we can turn the tide, and we will. Thank you for your invitation today.
Our thanks to Lord Hanson there, outlining the government's strategy for tackling fraud. I'd now like to introduce Mike Brumfield, Head of Intelligence at TPR and Chair of the Pension Scams Action Group. Mike.
Thanks, Kathy. Many of you have seen our latest industry alert, which expands on the threat we outlined in our first alert about the increase in impersonation fraud within schemes. In particular, we're seeing UK expats being targeted and the use of AI-generated identity documents to impersonate genuine scheme members. Analysis of City of London Police data by our TPR secondee has highlighted new methods used by fraudsters to bypass security checks, take over accounts and divert funds. We'll continue to monitor this trend closely and issue industry alerts as new risks are identified. These alerts would not be possible without your vigilance and reporting, as well as collaboration with PSAG partners, something that has also been crucial to the success of our website disruption work. We're working closely with partners, including the UK's National Domain Name Registry, Nominet, to enable us to proactively flag newly registered domains and disrupt these potential scam sites before harmful content is even published. By way of an example, a series of websites were identified using our AI website detection tool. Many of these involve the same individual who was a known bad actor and part of a wider criminal network. Thanks to our partnerships with National Economic Crime Centre and Nominet, the major registrars, many of these websites were promptly taken down. These websites sought to deceive and exploit savers with promises of tax-free access to pension pots before the age of 55. They included fake reviews to help convince visitors of their authenticity and promises of high investment returns. To date, we've reviewed over 1,000 suspicious websites in this way, with 10% being referred to partner agencies for further action and 30 websites taken down. This upstream disruption of fraudsters' operations is proving to be very successful. It is an efficient use of our resources frustrates the criminals, and protects savers from harm. We are now exploring further ways of dealing with repeat bad actors, working with partners and law enforcement agencies to develop further disruption techniques. We have also had some encouraging outcomes from recent joint agency work supporting victims of pension fraud. You may have seen our announcement confirming compensation has been awarded by the Fraud Compensation Fund, totalling over £180 million. While this is welcome news, we continue to stress that prevention really is the best defence against fraud. It avoids both the financial loss and the devastating emotional fallout that victims face. Another positive recent development is the launch of the Financial Conduct Authority's new Firm Checker tool. Designed for consumers, it offers a quick and simple way to check whether a firm is authorised by the FCA and has permission to sell products and services. We'd encourage all schemes and providers to update their member communication to signpost to this valuable resource, as well as checking that you're using the latest version of the PSAG Scam Safe leaflet, which we updated earlier this month. When it comes to your own authorisation checks, however, the full FCA register remains the primary reference point. We're also contributing to discussions with DWP on the potential to bring small self-administered schemes within the scope of transfer regulations. With an estimated 60,000 members and 31 billion in assets, this change could strengthen protections in a part of the market where risks are increasing. As always, our ask of you is to stay informed, remain vigilant and report all concerns. Sign up to TPR's pledge to combat pension scams. Industry support and input is central to our efforts. We work closely with the Pension Scams Industry Group and other industry stakeholders, and we always welcome your ideas and feedback to enhance our approach. I look forward to hearing your questions and comments shortly. I'll now hand you back to Kathy.
Thanks, Mike, for that helpful update on the latest developments across the PSAG partnership. It really underlines the value of collaboration and the vital importance of industry's input. I'm delighted to now introduce our next speaker, Donna Walsh from Standard Life. Donna is going to be answering a few questions to give us the perspective of a pension scheme. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be here today.
Now, we all know that pension scams are constantly evolving. What tactics are you currently seeing the scammers use?
So pension scams have evolved and criminals have changed their tact. We've moved from traditional scams, where criminals persuaded customers to transfer their pension to high-risk or non-existent opportunities, to impersonation scams, postal interception and overseas advisor activity, particularly in relation to self-invested personal pensions, also known as SIPs. To combat this, more of the due diligence we undertake for pension transfers now centre on ensuring customer understanding and potential impact on their outcomes. But it is hard to convince customers of potential risks when in many cases they've already made their decision. Scammers and at times unregulated advisors will use tactics based on our scam hints and tips to preempt our interventions and coach the customer to ensure the transaction can go ahead.
And we're very mindful of the pace of change and the new approaches taken to convince savers to do things that perhaps they shouldn't. As Lord Hanson mentioned, it's vital that industry educates savers about the warning signs. How do you ensure that both your colleagues at Standard Life and your customers stay informed and protected?
So we use a multi-layered approach. For colleagues, this includes annual e-learning, monthly intelligence briefings, vulnerable customer training, financial crime champions, and detailed threat awareness packs. Colleagues will refer around 2 to 3% of transfers for a deeper review, and 1/3 of these cases do go to Money Helper, though most ultimately do proceed because customers have often already made their decision. For customers, we embed warnings throughout digital and phone journeys, ensuring accessibility to the warnings through our inclusive communication standards. It's critical that we educate throughout the savings journey and not just when the customer decides to transact. As an example, we regularly include scam articles in our Money Plus emails to 1.7 million customers.
Thank you. It sounds like the amount of effort being made behind the scenes to protect people is really impressive. Is there more that you would like to see done from government or regulators to take further action on scams?
We do need better data sharing, and that's between providers and between regulators, particularly the FCA. GDPR constraints slow down fraud prevention. We need to find a way that respects intended protections but facilitates the sharing of pertinent information so we can all act faster to protect customers. We also need consistency across the industry to close transfer loopholes, with some applying more rigour to their due diligence than others. We also need stronger collaboration between TPR, FCA and HMRC on scheme registrations, and improved feedback loops on reported cases. That's particularly so given the extremely low fraud prosecution rates that we see. There's so much change and we need to continue to embrace it, working collaboratively across the industry to stay alive to the latest threats to customers. If I did have a magic wand, there's 3 things I would do. Firstly, enable faster action through improved data sharing. Secondly, ensure a level playing field across providers to remove transfer loopholes. And finally, improve awareness to keep scams front of mind for people, not just at the decision stage.
Thanks, Donna. I like the idea of having a magic wand to counter the fraudsters' tactics. So finally, could you please give us a few examples to help bring to life some of the challenges that you've already mentioned?
Due to the new transfer rules and the adoption of the pledge across the industry, we have seen a massive reduction in the traditional pension transfer scams. The pledge really has made a difference, not least because it pulls signatories together in a common aim. There are 2 examples that do spring to mind. Firstly, mitigating the risk of customers taking their savings and then being scammed is vital. We had one customer who was going to take a lump sum to buy a piece of art. We spotted potentially suspicious activity and referred the case to our financial crime team. They, in turn, found enough evidence to suggest it was indeed a scam and the piece of art was actually just a print. The second example is around transfers to SIPPs. A warning sign for us is where we see multiple advisors recommending the same SIPP and the same investment. This suggests customer suitability has probably not been factored into the advice. Through our investigations, we can end up with a spider's web of names, including multiple advisors. We can see how they're connected, even related, and we can link business names and addresses and how they all weave together. This can help us identify bad actors, stop transfers to SIPPs, and report our findings. If across the industry we could share those webs of information, we could help identify where bad actors are resurfacing and act faster to protect customers.
Thank you, Donna. It's so helpful to hear about what you're seeing within your schemes and the great work that you're doing to help protect your customers. And it's now a pleasure to introduce our final speaker, Chris Bell from City of London Police, who will be giving us an update on the new Report Fraud service. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Kathy. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining this session on Report Fraud. You've already heard about the importance of spotting warning signs and helping savers stay informed. 2 core parts of the Pension Regulator's pledge principles. I'm here to focus on the 3rd principle, reporting suspicions. Last year, we launched Report Fraud, the national cybercrime and fraud reporting service that replaced Action Fraud. I want to share what we've built, how it's performing, and what it means for you when you come across something that doesn't look quite right. Our aim is simple: to develop a service that's clear, easy to use, and genuinely helpful, whether you're a member of the public reporting a loss or a pension professional raising a concern. We designed Report Fraud to capture intelligence more effectively, triage it properly, and act on it quickly, while still being able to handle more than 40,000 reports every month. Since launch, awareness of the service has grown steadily. Our early work focused on introducing Report Fraud and acknowledging the frustrations with the old system. We've been working closely with partners like the Pensions Regulator and the Home Office to run aligned campaigns such as Stop Think Fraud. This engagement is turning into real service use. And sessions like this help us connect directly with the people best placed to spot suspicious activity. That's you. The intelligence we're receiving is helping us build a clearer, more proactive picture of the threats that are out there. High-quality reporting from pension professionals is a key part of that. When several of you report concerns about the same firm, the same phone number, or the same pattern of behaviour, it allows us to connect the dots and identify organised criminal activity that might not be obvious from a single report. Later this year, we'll publish our first annual assessment, which will share more about what we're seeing and learning. A few parts of the service are performing particularly well. Clearer processes mean more consistent handling of reports. We're able to provide more transparency both to victims and to professionals, which helps build confidence in the system. Collaboration across teams is strengthened, so call centre staff, investigators, and intelligence analysts are working in a much more joined-up fashion. Our embedded secondees, including one from the Pensions Regulator, who are focused solely on workplace pension reports, are adding real value to the service. We'll keep refining the service and using feedback from users and partners. We're also learning more about what information is most useful to analysts and how we can make reporting as straightforward as possible for busy pension professionals. And just to be clear, you don't need to be sure that fraud has taken place before you report something. Your professional judgment matters, and sometimes in small concerns that help complete a bigger picture. Therefore, please report if a member receives unexpected or unsolicited contact about their pension, you can't verify the scheme behind a transfer request, a receiving scheme shows red flags like overseas investments, single member structures, or pressure to act quickly, or something simply feels off. Our message is simple: every report counts. If in doubt, please report it. As pension administrators, trustees and advisors, you're on the front line. You speak to members at key moments, and you're often the first to spot when something isn't right. Even the smallest report can help us identify new scam tactics or connect intelligence that prevents someone from losing their savings. We know the old system wasn't always motivating. People weren't sure what happened after submitting a report. Report fraud really is different. Every report is triaged, analysed, and fed directly into active intelligence work. Please make reporting suspicions part of your routine duty of care. The new service is designed to be intuitive, based on feedback from victims, frontline officers, and industry partners. It eases the burden on reporters and provides clearer advice and updates afterwards. When using report fraud, there are some key steps to note for reporting fraud and reporting suspicions. I'd like to take a few moments highlighting these. Whether making a fraud report or submitting an information report with your suspicions, your starting point will be selecting Make a Report, and then cybercrime or fraud options. As pension professionals, reporting fraud and suspicions in the course of your role, I'd encourage you to register for report fraud before making your first report. Not only will this make future reporting less time-consuming for you, but you'll also be able to easily make additions to previous reports, should you need to, and receive updates of your submissions when you want them. For pension-related reports, you're likely to select I'm reporting on behalf of an affected person. This step represents a key split in the reporting journey. Select the left box to continue down the fraud report path, or select the right box to report a suspicion. I want to finish by reassuring you, your vigilance matters, your reports matter, and your judgment matters. Thank you. I'll now hand you back to Cathy.
Thank you, Chris, for that very helpful overview of how the new service strengthens reporting and supports more effective intelligence gathering across the system. We'd like to begin this session by looking at the results from the first poll, which should now be appearing on your screen. We asked you why you might hesitate to report your suspicions of pension fraud. Now, given that the reporting system is still in its early stages, it's great to see so many of you being supportive and planning to use report fraud. So, Chris, perhaps I could come to you. What's your reflection on those results?
Yeah, really positive, and so excellent to see such conviction and people stating they wouldn't have any hesitation to report suspicions. And I'd like to thank those who already have and those that will in future. Hopefully the second last one's been answered earlier on, so I won't focus too much on how to report. And then the other two are kind of common in terms of what they've got, that it doesn't turn out to be a fraud or it's not going to lead to meaningful action. All I would say is let us worry about that. Creating an intelligence picture is like a jigsaw, and we'd rather have too many pieces than missing pieces. So please report, and we will take care of that information and that intelligence. Are really positive, Kathy. Thank you.
Absolutely, great, thank you. Every report counts. So we'll move now to our questions that you've been sending in. And the first question is coming in from Owen. Thank you for your question, Owen. So Mike, this is directed at you. You talked about the recent industry alerts on impersonation fraud. Can you tell us a bit more about the techniques that you'll see in the scammers use and how people are being targeted via social media? And also how people can sign up to receive these alerts.
Thanks, Kathy. So what we've seen email hacking, postal interception. We've also seen where there's been identity theft, so trying to get hold of people's documentation and their details. What we want to make sure is social media is a safe place for people to operate. So beware of people trying to get your data and use it for illicit means. So if you want to sign up for alerts, we have a service at TPR, a regulatory roundup that you can sign up to and get those alerts, which includes the impersonation fraud alert. Chris, I also know that City of London Police issue alerts and people could sign up to those. I wonder if you could elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, that's correct. So the Report Fraud service also has an alert service for you. It's something to go in and register. You can pick to receive those on the media channel that you would like, and that will give you ongoing protect information, anything we're seeing coming out in latest scams, and the methodology that the bad actors are using. So yeah, I would prompt people to sign up to those alerts.
Great, thank you both. Now, a question for you, Donna. You mentioned that GDPR can be a barrier to sharing data. What do you suggest can be done about this?
So yes, it is a key challenge that we face in industry. And of course, we can share some information through industry groups, such as PSAG, but we do need to be mindful of data sharing in those cases. And another thing we need to be cautious of is that who would take liability if we were to share information about a suspected bad actor that turned out not to be the case? So I think for me, the key action we can all take is to report any suspicions as we see them. So report fraud. And as Chris said earlier, 40,000 reported cases every month. So they can start to see the trends coming through and take more action.
Chris, would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge for every organisation, including public sector, law enforcement, government agencies. There is a feature of the new fraud strategy that was launched last week to try and simplify data sharing so that organisations who are involved in the response to this type of crime type are more free to share that, and the government considers the risk in doing it. I think we all appreciate that collaboration is key to be successful, and making data sharing easier, providing the information for the right reasons, is something I think we've all got to focus on.
Yeah. And Mike, anything from TPR's perspective on data sharing?
I think we're really excited about report fraud. So in terms of suspicions, we encourage people to continue to report fraud. We're a recipient of that information, so we can use it. And as you say, if there's a missing piece of the jigsaw, we can put that together and target some of our intelligence work and our output. So we're really excited. Keep sharing your information and use report fraud.
Thank you. Chris, a question here for you from Carol. The response time has massively improved with the new service, which is a great positive step. But there's some concerns that the speed of response is actually a bit concerning. Could you explain what's going on there?
Yeah, this is a really good question from Carol, because it's something we've been seeing coming into the service. So there was two areas that had quite a criticism under action fraud. One was when things were reported, it was hard to track, or there was no information coming back from the service or law enforcement. And so we tried to address that with everyone understanding where they are and what's happening with their casework. Secondly, within the response across law enforcement and agencies, the time we were taking to get those out was obviously a concern as well. So the new service, utilising enhanced automation, AI, as well as all modern techniques for large data, is allowing us to review those cases and get them out as hot leads. And so that's really positive for the people that are in the receiving end and might want to comment on that. The flip side is we're recognising people are thinking they've received this, they've looked at it, and they've given us an update already. It absolutely is in line with our policies, our procedures, and our triage prioritisation. And we're keeping you up to date. And we will continue to keep people up to date when we use that information. So that's not the end of it. Every time we have a link, they will be updated what we're using it for, is what I'd say, Kat.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Did you want to add anything on that one, Mike?
Again, a really positive step. Report Fraud's a new service. It's working well already, as Chris has just alluded to. So we're really excited about it, and I'm sure it's going to be a beneficial service to all people in the UK, especially industry as well. So again, keep reporting.
Yeah, and we've got one of our own intelligence analysts, of course, actually embedded within City of London Police and has now got first-hand access to those reports, which is really helping the way we respond as well. Pension dashboards are coming soon, as we know. So the question for you, Mike, from Christine, are you concerned that the implementation of pension dashboards, is that creating another opportunity for the fraudsters?
Pensions dashboard is, again, another exciting advancement. It increases the visibility of pensions for savers in the UK and puts them all in one place. So it's a great step forward. With everything new, there becomes a risk. We're watching that really closely with our partners, especially DWP and MAPS. So we're working collaboratively, and we'll continue to monitor those risks as and when they arise, and we'll take mitigatory action. So again, it's all about us working together, collaborating, working in partnership to identify risk and tackle it.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that we'll be running future webinars about the dashboard as well, so people can keep in touch and watch out for that. Chris, another question for you from Sinram, asking, it's natural to worry about reporting something that doesn't turn out to be a fraud. So what advice can you give us to make sure that we're not wasting your time and ours?
Yeah, well, thanks, Simran. And it features into the response provided for the poll outputs. It's for us to worry about. We'd rather have the information and us have that information there and stored than not receiving something that could turn out to be a vital piece of intelligence for us. And what I would say is everything that we receive, we will hold. And every time we get fresh information in, we research, or the system researches all the data to see if there's any linkages. So something that might not seem important in the here and now might come out to be a missing piece of information in future, as well as other reports are received or other trends and become aware to us. So yeah, it's absolutely important that people report and let us worry about the data side of it.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Can I just pick up on that point as well? So, Kathy, you mentioned that we've got a secondee at City of London Police. So we're already seeing the benefits of the service. So that missing piece of the jigsaw is really important to us. So again, we're going to benefit from this new system, and it helps us progress that intelligence where we couldn't before. So it's really, really valuable, and we're seeing that already.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Donna, a question here for you from Alan, who really likes your spider's web analogy. What action do you take in these circumstances? And is there an industry forum for sharing this type of information with other providers?
Yeah, so we use any findings and report them in through either Report Fraud Now or to the regulators, or could be and the regulators as well. I mentioned earlier that we do share some information through industry groups such as PSAG, but again, we need to be careful of data protections there. We also, where we believe that a transfer activity is either had unsuitable advice or the product is not suitable, we will prevent the transfer, even though the customer may have a statutory right to do so. So where we do see something that we feel is very suspicious, we will block the transfer too.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question about reporting, so perhaps Mike and then Chris. Question from Raj. You've asked us to report all suspicions, but it's not quite as simple as that, as we have processes we need to follow and we need to get agreement from managers, etc. So how do we make it simple? Mike first.
That's a really good question, because we know that different organisations in the industry have different ways of following processes and reporting, And that may differ from company to company in terms of their process and the outcome of that. But again, we've touched on it earlier. Every report counts. We want to see those suspicions. We appreciate that there's probably a cost involved, but if you give us that information, as you've just heard from Chris, we can use that. We can put that piece of the jigsaw puzzle together, and it's really valuable for us because you're telling us something that we don't already know. So really, really important to keep reporting.
Chris, anything to...
Yeah, I mean, I think we all recognise that each organisation has its processes. It has to be risk-based decisions and governance as part of every firm. The ask is to try and report the suspicions, and we ask everyone to take that back into their decision-making bodies within their organisation and see if there is stuff that makes it easier for the people on the ground to do that. And that would be the kind of call to action.
Okay, thank you. Mike, another question for you from Mohammed. You said earlier that you're working potentially on bringing SASs into the transfer regulations. What is the most significant fraud risk within the SAS space right now, and what action has been taken to address that?
In terms of action, this is a risk that we've been tracking. We've been working with our PSAG partners, and we've carried out a threat assessment, a risk assessment on what's happening with SASs in terms of fraud. It is a difficult marketplace to follow because obviously there's data challenges, but we've worked through that with an industry group as well. So we've got a good picture now of what those risks are. And what we're seeing is the usual investment opportunities, the too good to be true investments, and poor outcomes for people that choose that route. So this is a marketplace where traditionally you have to have schemes that are less than 12 members, all of them are trustees. So it's really member directed, but we're seeing it being used by fraud. So I've touched on that we've worked with PSAG partners, but we've now got a really great opportunity. We're working with DWP. They're looking at this situation as well. And I'm sure there'll be more to follow that we can talk about at a later date once that emerges.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll watch this space then on that one. Chris, if I can come back to you, a question from Jeremy. Within the new report fraud service, how easy is it to keep up to date with reports, both new and existing reports?
Yeah, Jeremy touches on a key feature of the new service. So I touched on earlier about the importance of creating an account, and that's where you would see all reports that you've been involved in LinkedIn. Each of those reports will automatically update when we take action, and there's around 42 touch points within the new service that will trigger an update going out to individuals. So that will come automatically to people through the choice of medium that they've chosen. So it is about getting yourself in there registered, and that will automatically flow through.
Great, okay. This next question I'd like to hear from all of you, if that's okay. Question from Andrew. So Lord Hanson made the point in the video earlier that fraudsters are adapting rapidly, but so are we. So it'd be great to hear from you examples of how you're responding quickly and how you're anticipating and responding to new and emerging threats. Mike, perhaps I can start with you on that one.
Thanks, Kathy. That's a great question, and it was great to have Lord Hanson on this session. So firstly, intelligence sharing is paramount. We've talked about report fraud. We've talked about the reporting suspicions, and actually piecing that picture together and collaborating and sharing intelligence with partners is fundamental to any outcomes and success. We've talked quite a lot about our AI website tool. That's where we're tackling new and emerging risks with AI and doing something really different so that we can make a difference and make it a safer space for people to operate online. So we're looking at techniques where we can close down loopholes and keep working together and working with partners in industry and across law enforcement and regulation.
Thanks. And Donna, what are your thoughts?
So we're actually really careful about how much we do share, because we know that the fraudsters do adapt their techniques based on our hints and tips and what we're seeing. So, but one of the examples I did mention earlier that we have shared is around the multiple advisors advising multiple customers, irrespective of their demographic, their wealth, with the same product, the same investments. And that goes back to the spider's web analogy, where we can start to piece together and then we adapt our customer communications and processes accordingly.
Great. Thank you. And Chris, anything?
Yeah, Kathy, a few points here. So I'll start with report fraud. So we switched on the service on the 4th of December. I touched on earlier that importance of getting live casework out to law enforcement. And a nice couple of examples. So day one, we received a report around 3 p.m. By 11 a.m., that had been researched out 17 linked suspects and out to law enforcement within 24 hours. That would take days, if not weeks, previously. And again, within 48 hours, we had an intelligence packet going out to all agencies on new information that we'd seen on a methodology that was being utilised. So that just illustrates the power that's in behind the service without getting into specifics. And then just to follow up on Lord Hanson specifically, one of the main focuses of the new fraud strategy is the announcement around the online crime centre. And that's us moving more into proactive work. So upstream, stop and block, design out activities, sitting alongside colleagues in public-private sector. And that's going to enhance our response. It's going to enhance our spotting trends quickly. And it's going to start making a real difference in line with everything else that we're doing in collaboration across different industries.
Yeah, so lots more to come by the sounds of it. This next question from Sarah is a bit of a tricky one, but I'll try to answer it. Question is about whether the session will be recorded for those who can't attend today. So yes, I'm pleased to say the session is being recorded and the webinar will be uploaded onto the page that you're accessing now. So you can either watch it again or refer colleagues who couldn't make it today to watch it through. Next question from Farouk is about the FCA seal adverts, Anil Vasil. Mike, perhaps I can come to you first on this one. Do you think that this could be the start of bolder messaging from the industry to change consumer behaviours?
I think this is already the start. It's a great campaign by the FCA, really eye-catching, a really powerful advertising campaign. So I already think that it is a really sea change. We've talked about Lord Hanson, we've talked about some of the tools available, and we've already got Stop Think Fraud as a national campaign to promote fraud awareness and what members of the public can do to protect themselves against fraud. So hopefully this is the start, but it feels like a really good start.
Donna, anything you'd like to add to that one?
Yeah, I agree. Anything that we can do to increase awareness of pension scams is a positive. We do have pension awareness season. We've got Pay Your Pension More Attention. Perhaps we could have a pension scam season as well to try and boost some engagement.
Yeah, great idea. Okay, thank you.
Can I maybe add in there, Kathy? So I've just arrived back today from the Global Fraud Summit and attended a session run by TikTok, and it was about how we use social media more, and given the range of different victims that we've got across frauds, how we are a bit bolder in our social media approach to things. And that is about breaking out the norm and taking a bit more risks. But for example, people may have seen in Report Fraud, we've done a meme with squid vids, and it's around the story of Little Red Riding Hood with a bit of humour in there, but it gets the message over about the importance of reporting with a story that everyone will remember from their childhood. And I'd ask people to go and look at it, give us some comments back on it through Instagram. But I do think the reaction to it, how often it's been shared and how far and wide that message has went is massive compared to our normal reach through our social media channels. And it's a nice little test case.
Can't wait to see you on TikTok, Chris, with Boredom. So a more serious question now from Jenny, and I'll come to you on this one, Mike. What enforcement action has or will be taken against fraudsters? I'm assuming it's the end of that question.
So this is a great opportunity to talk about the work of PSAG and how we collaborate. It's not just about intelligence, but it's also about how we prevent and raise awareness and disrupt scammers. So we've already seen over the years action by different agencies. So for example, TPR have taken on some big cases and locked up criminals in the past. You may have seen recently that the Serious Fraud Office has led their investigations and got successful criminal prosecution, especially with in relation to ethical forestry. And there's more to come from SFO, which they've also publicised. We're aware of regional police force cases that have been successful as well. But again, it just underpins the strength of us collaborating together to take action. So there's action right across the partnership from FCA, HMRC, TPR and law enforcement. So we're seeing some really good outcomes.
Great, thank you. And back to you, Donna, with a question from Melissa. You referenced that most transfers usually go ahead after the referral to Money Helper. What ideas do you have and what do you already do to try to influence the decisions before the customer's mind is made up?
Yeah, that's right. So around 98% of our referrals to Money Helper actually proceed. And I think it goes back to my point around once someone's made a decision, it's hard to change their mind. So if you go into a shop to buy a bar of chocolate and get to the counter and we suggest maybe you should consider buying an apple, you're unlikely to change your mind at that point. So it goes back to this point around educating all the way through a saver's journey, not just at the point of transaction. So that early education is absolutely key.
Yeah, that's a great analogy as well. Chris, a question for you here from Philip. What are the two different routes for reporting fraud for the industry?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. So we touched on one earlier with the presentation where you're reporting on behalf of someone and that journey to run through a standard report. And the second option is the bulk upload tool for industry, where that allows you to put multiple reports in behalf of people. And that's kind of the two routes. That requires you to register as an organisation and then utilise that option. What I would say is we are the start of a new service. We do want to continue to improve. And I suspect that bulk upload tool could be better, more streamlined, more effective and efficient. So it's important we do trial it, but people do give us the feedback on it because I suspect that's an area that we can do better on. And it's important we take that feedback from the likes of Philip and colleagues out there.
Thank you. And there's a question here from Richard about the Stop Think Fraud campaign, which I'll try my best to answer. So the question is how does it help members to avoid scams? Is the idea that they visit if they're unsure about something? So the Stop Think Fraud campaign is a national campaign run by the Home Office designed to raise awareness and understanding among the general public. It covers all types of fraud, from the sort of low value but very high volume frauds like ticket sales through to investment fraud and pension fraud that we're talking about today. So the idea is really just to enable people to spot the warning signs and know what action to take and to generally help raise awareness. Does that sound about right? I think I've answered that. Let me know if you want to jump in. If not, we'll move on to our next question from John, which is one for you, I think, Mike. What are the penalties for pension fraud? Are they high enough?
We've just touched on custodial sentences, so actually locking up criminals who are perpetrating fraud. So we can't do that in every case, but that's quite a draconian method and quite powerful. So whether the penalties are high enough or not, that is one extreme example. But I think, again, I'd really go back to how we're working in this space, how we're looking at prevention to actually tackle fraud before it damages a person's income or takes their pension away. So we would really keep that message alive about prevention, disruption, raising awareness, and in the most powerful sense, we can actually look at criminal investigations across the partnership to take action.
Yeah, thank you. Donna, a question for you here from Sarah. You mentioned that at Standard Life you've pledged. How do you go about convincing colleagues to pledge, and why did you think it was important to do so?
So I think for us, it was not so much about convincing colleagues about the pledge. It was more about reinforcing the controls we already had in place, doing a sense check against the pledge, against what controls we had, and then reinforcing messages to colleagues about the importance and how critical this was. So I don't really feel there was any convincing to be had because our colleagues were already on board with the importance of this.
That's good to hear. So it's sort of reinforcing good practice. Mike, and then perhaps Chris to respond on this question from Shona. What happens to victims? Do they get any form of compensation? What support is available to victims, Mike?
We've talked earlier about the compensation, and we've talked about our work with the Fraud Compensation Fund, which has returned over £180 million to victims and to schemes. So there is compensation there, and there's also compensation depending on what type of investment you've made with financial compensation scheme in FCA's jurisdiction. In terms of what happens to victims, we're supporting victims by making the journey clearer, and so that they are signposted to report fraud, and they get support from the Money and Pension Service, so they can rebuild their financial health and move forward. It's really important for us to make sure that we're signposting that, and that it's clear to victims where they need to go for support. And we're working with the City of London Police, so I'm sure Chris can elaborate.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of our new service. It has been built with a victim-centric design. I think it's also easy to forget report fraud is policing. So from the day victims, or the moment victims call in, we are first and foremost assessing vulnerability and safeguarding. And if there's any threat, immediately we'll take action to refer that out to local police forces. If there is a call to action, for example, at the most dramatic end of the scale, but that does happen, and then through in various referrals, depending on the safeguarding risk that someone may have. But throughout that journey as well, we will ensure, and we're looking at trying to minimise repeat victimisation. Of course, we will give advice and try to stop the money going in the first place. And we have launched, as part of our new service, automated bank account information going out to the high street banks, for example. So there's new features already in the new service, and more will come on board, which is meant to, first of all, make sure people are safe, getting the support that they require, and when they're highly vulnerable, right through to trying to stop the money going as well at the right-hand side of that curve. So yeah, a really important part of the service.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's really helpful. There's a question here from John. TPR's strategy to combat pension scams expects a pension scam warning in every annual benefit statement. Seems to be several links that could be used for members to understand and report scams. Should administrators just provide one link or more? I think is a very simple answer to that, Mike, which is to use the PSAG leaflet.
That's absolutely the simple answer. Yeah, use the PSAG scams leaflet. But I'd be really interested in what Donna, as from industry, what your perspective would be.
Yeah, I agree that would be an appropriate leaflet to use. I think one of the things, my opinion on annual benefit statements is there's a lot of information in an annual benefit statement. So it's just getting that balance right between what to put in an annual benefit statement and what to put elsewhere, and not over-relying on an annual benefit statement, particularly if it's a paper. If it's a paper statement, obviously you'd have to send the leaflet. And if it's digital, people are engaged. If they've already got your email addresses, they're engaged, they're receiving information digitally. So we could do more in that space to engage them digitally about scams as well. So I would just not over-rely on the annual benefit statement.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We're coming towards the end of the question. So this is our penultimate question. And I'm not at all surprised that we didn't get through this session without the question of AI coming up. Question from Aaron. Thanks for your question. So with the advancement of AI, is the industry looking at any additional warning signs we in the industry can highlight to our members? Again, perhaps if I can ask for a quick word from all three of you on this one. Mike, starting with you.
So we've talked about our AI website tool that we're using to take down websites. I think AI is just an emerging platform. We need to keep up to date with AI and make sure that we're working well together, making sure that we understand the risk and we can take action. And that's, again, emphasizes why we work in partnership. So when we can say more, we will always say more about what we're doing in our alerts.
Thanks. And Donna?
I'm not surprised to see this question come through either. With AI, there's lots of opportunities for good with AI, but with it, there does come some risks as well. And with AI, you will start to see more sophistication from fraudsters. So it is really important for us to stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the fraudsters. And first and foremost, support our colleagues to help members from falling victims to fraud, and then think about what messages we then want to send out to customers. Again, taking into account what I said earlier about not sharing too much because the fraudsters can adapt their techniques to combat that. So it's a tricky one.
Yeah, fine line.
Yeah.
Chris, anything from you?
Well, I think it's been covered. I mean, it is the latest technique, and it's unfortunately can be used for bad, but equally an opportunity for good. I think where we have a challenge is how we ethically use that capability, and that's not something the bad actors have to worry themselves about. So it's important that organisations, as they introduce AI, look at the ethical consequences, they understand where the data is going and all the bits that keep people safe from other threats, particularly in services that are there to protect people. So it does add a significant challenge, but it is something that policing, government, etc., are looking at around there. So it's one of those challenges we're all going to have to work with.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, unbelievably, we're almost out of time, but we've got time for one final question from Bal, which is a great question to end on, actually. Thanks for the question, Bal. The majority of the working population who haven't attended today's seminar will not be aware of the risks of pension fraud. So what is being done across the UK to raise awareness? Again, I'd love to hear from all three of you on this. We've already spoken about the Stop Think Fraud campaign. Mike, anything you'd like to add on that?
I think, yeah, we've talked about Stop Think Fraud, the new fraud strategy, how FCA have just brought in their firm checker tool. So there's lots of awareness going on out there, and it should continue. So if you can flag that awareness to your scheme members, that would be great. But yeah, loads of things going on, really positive.
Donna, quick word on that?
Yep, I think from a provider perspective, there's lots that we do, obviously, across telephony journeys and digital journeys at point of transaction. There's lots of stop and think wording within there. Also, I mentioned before about educating members throughout their savings journey, not just at the point of transaction. So again, sending out reminders about pension scams as part of ongoing engagement. But again, back to my magic wand, it is probably one thing that I think we as an industry could do more to work together to raise that awareness.
Yeah, I agree. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the heart of report fraud as well, and it's an area we've not touched on, so a really helpful question. So we do want to simplify the trusted message vehicles for the general public, and Stop Think Fraud is meant to be that national moniker that people can get to know and trust. But we are working with the National Economic Crime Centre on coordinating the protect advice that goes out across all agencies and ensure they're coordinated, they're the right messaging at the right time of year. We're also updating on emerging trends, threats, scam information, methodology, and that becomes really powerful if everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet and the general public know the brand, trust it, and act to it. But going back from that in terms of protection and the previous question, it is just back to some common principles. Sadly, if it seems too good to be true, it is the opportunity to stop, think about it, ask for a bit of advice and maybe put something down for a few hours and go back and think about it with a fresh mind. And I think we just got to continue to remember ourselves principles that we've all been brought up with. Yeah.
That sounds like a perfect point for us to wrap up. A really lovely summary, actually, of all the points we've covered today. So thank you, all of you, for your responses. So as we head into our closing remarks, let's look at the results of our second poll. You'll remember you answered this question earlier. Which actions are you most likely to take after today's webinar? And it's really encouraging to see such a range of potential next steps coming through, particularly positive to see the interest in reporting suspicions more confidently and in signposting members to helpful tools like the FCA Firm Checker. So thank you very much for your responses to those two questions. Before we close, I'd like to pause and reflect on the progress that's being made. Pension fraud is evolving fast and the risks remain significant, but our collective response across industry and law enforcement is stronger, more coordinated, and increasingly proactive. Your vigilance, your reporting, and your action are driving that progress. It's worth remembering why this matters. At its core, this is about protecting people's life savings. When we improve reporting, share intelligence, and apply consistent good practice, we build a more resilient system, stopping harm before it happens. For schemes and providers, these behaviours also strengthen oversight, tighten controls, and build trust in a sector where confidence is essential. So my thanks to our panel today and to all of you for joining us and sharing your questions and comments. We hope today's session has been useful and that you feel better equipped to spot the risks, take action, and continue your vital role in the wider PSAG effort. You can download our reference documents and useful links guide, and the webinar recording will be available on this page in the coming days. We'd also really value your feedback, so please do take a moment to submit your thoughts via the survey tab or using the QR code on your screen. Thank you for joining us today and supporting the fight against fraud. Goodbye.